I am so excited to share with you our Isabella Maxi or Midi dress sewing tutorial. I feel this long sleeve dress design is so versatile for any season or for any occasion as well. You can easily style it with flats for everyday wear or put on some boots if it's winter outside, or wear it with heels for a party. This dress is a fairly easy sewing project. It doesn't even have a zipper. Instead, there is an elasticated back which allows to easily put this dress on. Also, this means that this dress will fit you even if your shape changes a bit. There are two length options included, Maxi and Midi length. The skirt has a slit, but it's not mandatory to make it. The skirt is wide enough to walk even if you skip making the slit. And I know this is very important, this dress has pockets. For this dress, I recommend to use lightweight viscose, polyester or silk fabrics. The top part is self-lined. However, I had this light color printed fabric and I added a single color lining because the print would be shining through. In that case, you would also need 40 centimeters of lining fabric. If you want to make a medieval style dress, maybe for cosplay, you could also go for medium weight cotton or some other heavier fabrics. Then it has a totally different vibe, but the Isabella pattern works great for it as well. You will also need matching threads, elastic band that is 7 mm wide, and I highly recommend to use a strip of interfacing that is around 1.5 cm wide. You can buy it pre-cut or you can also use the scraps from larger interfacing materials. That's how I usually do it. We need only about 50 cm only for the neckline. I will be using a sewing machine and a serger. If you don't have a serger, use sewing machine zigzag stitch instead. I am using the Isabella sewing pattern, which you can find in our Etsy or online store. The links are down in the description. This pattern comes in US letter A4 format, which you can print with any regular printer. It also comes in A0 format, which you can print at a copy shop in case if you don't want to spend time on assembling the paper pages together. There is this one special detail that I added as a template to use later. Do not cut it from the fabric. We will use this paper piece as a reference to form our back panel. As I mentioned, there is a midi length and also a maxi length. Remember that our patterns have visible seam and hem allowances. The thickest line is the pattern with seam or hem allowance, so if you agree with our amounts of hem allowances, then cut following the thickest line. In this video, I will make the midi option, so I will cut following this line. However, I will save those cut-off paper pieces because I am sure that I will make a maxi dress in the future. Then I will simply use a scotch tape to join it back. Let's start by cutting out all the pattern details. I will place the paper pattern on the folded fabric. For your information, you can consider to place the skirt panels in opposite directions. Of course, always follow the grain line. This might help you to save some fabric. However, many fabrics shine differently if you cut the panels in different directions. This is more common with satin fabrics, also fabrics with suede effect, and most coat fabrics have this issue. So currently I am doing the right thing, but I am also wasting a bit of my fabric. Don't forget to cut the notches. Make a small snip in the seam allowance, approximately 5 mm long. If your fabric frays a lot, you can also use a marker or a soap to mark the notches. These notches will help us a lot later to easier match the panels together, especially if you have a fluid fabric like I do. And don't forget that some of the details need to be cut twice, as two pairs. In total there are 4 of them. Here at the front we have a situation going on. If you are making a slit, then leave the same allowance as those 2 centimeters. If you are making a slit on one leg, leave this wide seam allowance only on that one leg and trim off 1 centimeter on the other side, where you will not make the slit. If you're not making the slit at all, then simply cut that extra seam allowance for both sides. By the way, it's better to use a ruler and a marker first to mark that 1 centimeter. Don't freestyle cutting like I do. This is a bad habit. I do have a very trained eye on measurements, but still, it's not cool. I am doing this in front of you. And I will also cut a few interfacing strips for the neckline. Let's prepare the top panels by pressing on the interfacing strip. Skip the step for the center back panel. I highly recommend to do this because when using a sewing machine, the fabric at the neckline area can stretch out and start to look wavy. Since the neckline in this design is the star of the show, we need to make sure it looks sharp. Also, it will stabilize this neckline later when you will be washing this dress in the washing machine. So this 5-minute step is like a long-term investment. Do this only for the outer layer, so 5 details in total. Now we can start sewing. Lay the front center panel with the front side panels with right sides together. Start by matching the notch first. Pin the seam. Stitch 1 centimeter apart from the edge. Repeat the step with the inner layer as well. Or if you are using a lining, then repeat the step with the lining panels as well. In case if you are wondering, for these front panels it is better to pin starting from the notch, not from the top edge, because the top edges are in different angles. Especially if you are new to sewing, it might be tempting to put those edges and corners in a way they are matching, but then it will be more difficult to get the seam right. I hope this makes sense. I know that I was struggling with these kind of seams when I was learning how to sew. While we are here, let's also the back side panels. Match them with the right sides with the front panels. However, here you can start pinning from the top edge because both panels have the same shape at the side seam. Stitch 1 centimeter apart from the edge. Press all these seams towards the back. For the front panels, I am using the curved edge of the ironing board to better iron the curved seam. Lay the outer and inner panels together with the right sides facing. Start by matching the seams and then pin along the neckline. Make a stitch 1 centimeter apart from the edge. Stitch along the neckline, but do not stitch the armholes. Turn the inner layer. We need to understitch the inner layer to the seam allowance. Make a stitch 2 mm apart from the previous seam and make sure you are stitching this layer to the seam allowance. I prefer to work from the right side of the fabric because then I can better control the distance from the previous seam. However, you might feel more comfortable to work from the wrong side to be sure that you are stitching on the seam allowance, which is very important. If you haven't done this before, bring your attention to my hand movements. I am sort of pulling these two panels away from each other because it's important that the fabric is flat before restitching. Since we have a curved line here, we need to do a few snips in the seam allowance. This will help us to release some fabric tension and we will be able to press this neckline flat. Do these cuts in a slanting line against the stitches. Be extremely careful not to cut in the stitches nor in the actual bodice panels. Make more stitches where the line is more curved. Flip the inner layer and press along the neckline. Press it in a way that you can see a tiny bit of the outer layer. This will ensure that the inner layer always stays inside and never is visible when you are wearing this dress. As As you can see, there's like a millimeter visible of the outer layer, but when you are looking from the right side, you cannot see any inside layer at all. Also, if you feel that the neckline is very thick where the vertical seams are going, trim off a bit of the seam allowance at these cross points. I am talking a lot today, but I want to clarify that our goal is to get the neckline flat. However, the front panel itself isn't flat, so it might be helpful if you let some part of the bodice hang over the ironing board. Use only the tip of the iron to press just the neckline area. Don't go all over the bodice with all your iron. Let's stitch together the armholes 5 mm apart from the edge, because it will be easier to work if these two layers are fixed together. It might happen that the edges aren't matching perfectly, that's normal. Don't force them together, it's better that the rest of the bodice lays nicely. These indiscrepancies can happen because of the nature of satin fabrics. Also, there might be a slight cutting error, which is perfectly normal, that you cut one detail like 1 mm longer and then the other 2 mm shorter, and that's why it might happen that the edges aren't like exactly going together. It's good to be a perfectionist when you are sewing, but in this case, we need to look at the big picture, and these few millimeters don't make a difference. Lay the back panels with the right sides facing. Start by pinning at the notch at the middle and then finish pinning the rest of the upper edge. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Here as well, we need to understitch the inner layer to the seam allowance. If you are using the same fabric for both layers, then it doesn't matter which one is the inner layer, just pick one side. Make a stitch 2 mm apart from the previous stitch while also stitching through the seam allowance. It's not as necessary here, but still this line is slightly curved, so let's do a few trims in the seam allowance. Flip the inner layer and press the neckline as we did previously, so there's like 1 mm visible of the outer layer. Lay the back panels flat and pin the lower edge. Make a stitch 5 mm apart from the edge. This stitch simply helps to keep both layers together. Take your paper pattern and copy these lines on the inner layer. I did it in a way that I measured the distance between these lines and put the markings on the back panel by measuring the distance from the neckline. Remember that the neckline is slightly curved. However, now when I am looking at this video, I would actually recommend you to fold or cut off the seam allowances of this paper pattern and use one edge of this paper piece as a ruler to make these markings. Lay it on the back panel at various points and add the markings from the paper pattern. I hope it makes sense, because that would be much faster. Stitch by following these guidelines. Probably your back panel also looks a bit creased and uneven like mine. You can give a quick press, but we will put inside the elastic band that will crease it anyways. Take the back panel template. The elastic band goes where these narrow lines are. Take your elastic and put it on this template. Also include the seam allowances. Cut your elastic band according to the length of the specific tunnel. Up to this point, I have been using a safety pin to insert elastic bands, but I got fed up that the smaller size safety pins often open at the middle of the casing, so instead I started to use a hairpin. And I think I will switch to hairpins completely from now on. Be careful not to lose the elastic inside the casing. I use pins to fix both endings. Or if you want to, you can go straight to the sewing machine and make a few stitches 5 mm apart from the edge just to secure the elastic in place. I have to warn you, if you have a light fabric like I do here, you probably will not have this issue. When it comes to heavier fabrics, even though if you cut the elastic as long as it should be based on the template, the end result might be wider. That's because heavier fabrics don't allow the elastic fully go to its neutral state. It also depends how soft or hard is your elastic band. If you notice that your back panel is significantly wider than the paper template, it is best to pull all of these 7 elastic bands to the point that the back panel starts to match the template. It doesn't have to be precise to a millimeter, but if the difference is more than a centimeter, then you should pull your elastics tighter. I used pins for all my elastic band endings and made one continuous stitch on both sides seems to fix my elastics in place. Use your fingers or simply pull the back panel with both hands to even out the gathering. Make sure that you match the back panel's inner layer with the front panel's inner layer. You can recognize it by the understitch below the neckline. Lay outer layers right side with back panel's outer layer. Try to match the neckline as close as possible. Pin the side seam. Stitch 5 mm apart. Do the same steps for the other side as well. Fold the inner layer over the back panel, pin the seam. Start stitching from the neckline and stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Let's flip the front panel and check how the corner looks like. It is not completely perfect, but I think it looks fine. Trim off that corner at the seam allowance. This will help us to get a sharper corner at the back panel. But I have to warn you that because we have this elastic band going on right on that corner, it will be difficult to get a much better result. I tried this numerous times and I still couldn't figure out how to do it perfectly well. However, we can use an iron to shape those corners so the neckline at the back would look smoother. Lay the front top panels in a way that both layers are flat against each other. Pin the lower edge. Stitch 5 mm apart from the lower edge. Make a single gathering stitch 1 cm apart along the sleeve cuffs from one notch to another. Set your sewing machine stitch to number 4. Also, do not backstitch. Lightly pull this gathering stitch. Also use it as a guideline to press 1 cm of the sleeve cap. If it gets difficult to press it flat, it might be that you have gathered too much, so loosen it up a bit. Fold 1 cm again and press it. This time it might be a bit more difficult to press it flat. If there are a few very small creases here and there, it's okay, because the elastic will go through and gather it anyway. But I am speaking only about small creases, nothing too big. Repeat these steps with the other sleeve as well. Fold the sleeve on half lengthwise and pin the side seam. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge, starting from the armhole to the hem. Remember to put back the normal stitch length on your sewing machine. It has happened to me that I forget it and then I get a gathering stitch where it shouldn't be. After that, neaten the seams. Neaten both layers together. It's normal if your seam allowance looks slightly wavy after neatening. Simply use the iron to flatten it out. Then press the seam allowance towards the back. However, these sleeves have a symmetric shape, so it doesn't matter that much to which side you are pressing the seam allowance, just make sure that you are pressing it to the opposite sides. I mean, for one sleeve, press the seam allowance towards the back, and for other sleeve, press the seam allowance to the front side. If you know for sure that you like the length of these sleeves, you can already stitch the hem allowance because it is easier to work with smaller details. But if you have no idea, it's better to leave it as the last step after try-on, in case if you decide to shorten them. Lay sleeves right side with the top panels right side. Match the side seams and pin around the armholes. Let's work with both sleeves together. We can already see that our dress is coming. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Neaten both armholes. This is the moment to make the tunnel for the elastic band. Stitch almost 1 cm from the outer edge, right next to that folded edge we previously pressed. While we are here, we can also hide the tails of the serger stitch inside the tunnel. Okay, I gave up. I realized that I better add pins so I could stitch more smoother, otherwise I'm afraid that there will be too many creases. If it makes you comfortable, you could even do hand stitching. It's a bit slow, but also a good way how to control this curved edge. Here you can see that it's kind of unrealistic to expect that it will be completely smooth and flat. And if you have these small creases, don't stress about it. They will hide away anyways. Cut the necessary amount of elastic. It is written in the shopping list as a separate row. It was either 27 or 28 centimeters depending from your size. Ignore the fact that I am using a different elastic. I felt that the black one I had before is very soft and I decided that I want an elastic that is more firm for my sleeves. But that is more of a personal preference. Use a hairpin again and slide the elastic through the tunnels at the sleeve caps. Here as well, be careful not to lose the other end of the elastic band. Use a pin to fix it into place. Pin both endings and use a sewing machine stitch to make a few stitches to secure the elastic band. You can choose either you make this stitch next to the neckline or you go a bit lower. Just make sure that you pick the same location for all 4 spots. It's not very noticeable, so the choice is up to you. even out the elastic around the sleeves. We have finished the top part, let's move on to the skirt. Take the skirt front side panels and lay pocket bag right sides on the skirt panel right side. Match the notches on the pockets with the notches on the skirt panels. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. While we are here, let's also take the skirt back side panels and add pocket bags on them as well. Match the notches and also stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Neaten this seam allowance along the stitch we just made. Take only the front skirt panels and understitch the pocket bags to the seam allowance. In other words, make sure that the seam allowance is towards the pocket bag and you stitch approximately 2 mm apart from the previous seam. Here as well, the intention is for the front pocket bag to stay fixed inside the skirt. If we skip this step, the pocket bag would have a tendency to show out. Press all the seams we just made. For back panels, simply press everything flat. However, for the front panels, give a quick press and then fold the pocket bag towards the skirt middle. I hope you can already guess that we need to press it again in a way that we can see a small peek of the skirt panel. Basically, whenever we understitch something, we will need to press it like this later. For the back panels, press the seam allowance towards the pocket bag. Lay the front skirt panel on the back skirt panel. Find the notches. Possibly you will need to take your paper pattern in case if you have lost them inside the neatening stitch. Match the notches and pin. Normally I pin perpendicularly on the seam, but this time it is very important that the previous stitches are exactly against each other. So I am matching notches and I am also matching the previous seams. You will need to make a stitch like 1 mm apart from the previous stitch. Our goal is that the pocket bags and the previous seam isn't visible from the outside of the skirt. Work this way, also starting from the other notch towards the hem. Don't stress about matching the edges of the pocket bags. The main thing is that the pocket seams are laying perfectly together. This step takes the most precision in this sewing project. Before and after, if it was like millimeter here and there, it was totally fine. But here we have to be careful. If you need, you can also do a few hand stitches. So you need to stitch only through 2 layers and you can use your fingers to check that you're on the right direction. That side which feels thicker doesn't need to be stitched through. And a daily reminder that it's better not to stitch over pins. This is a tricky step and if you feel like you wish you could stitch over them, it's better to baste instead. And when you will finish stitching with the sewing machine, you can take out those basting threads. Lay your skirt panels flat and let's make a stitch 5 mm apart from the pocket bag upper edge. And then also make a stitch 1 cm apart from the pocket bag curved edge. I swear I don't remember in any other our sewing projects that I have mentioned this so often. The main thing is that the pocket bags are laying flat. It might happen that the edges aren't perfectly matching. That's why I am putting a weird amount of pins at random spots, because I want these 2 layers to be flat. Also, we want the pocket opening to be perfectly together. Here at this corner, try to get close to the previous seam, but you can leave a small amount open, nothing will fall through it. But do not cross the previous seam, that's completely forbidden. Neaten the seam starting from the top corner of the pocket bag towards the hem. When you will be neatening this corner, kind of pull the pocket bag so the seam straightens and try to neaten through all these layers. My serger slightly gathered the seam as usually, so I will press it flat. This happens most when working with light fabrics and also when the fabric is curved or on bias. It might seem like it's related to using the wrong tension of the threads, and sometimes it is the case, but overall with light fabrics this happens a lot and it's fixable with some ironing. Put the pocket bag towards the front panel and press the seam towards the front. I gave such a proper press that I pressed in the skirt panel the pocket bag. In this case, just pull the pocket bag away for a moment and press a single skirt layer. Every time we will put our hands in our pockets, there will be pressure on this corner on the pocket opening. It would be best to make a few stitches back and forth to strengthen this seam. Also, these stitches help to fix the pocket bag towards the front. Otherwise, they sometimes like to move more towards the back and we don't want that. However, sometimes I skip this step if I am going for an extra clean look. I'm just trying to be mindful later that I shouldn't apply too much pressure on my pockets. Lay the back side panel on the back center panel with the right sides facing each other. Match the notches and pin. Stitch 1 cm apart starting from the waist to the hem. Neaten these seams. Press these seams towards the back panel. Lay the front center panel on the front side panel. Work with the seam that doesn't have the slit. Simply match the notches and pin. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. And let's go neaten the seam right away. While we are here, let's also neaten these raw edges. Neater starting from the waist until the point where the slit starts. Press the previously made seam towards the side seams. Also give a quick press to smoothen out the neatened edges. Put together the center panel and the front side panel with the right sides facing. Pin starting from the waist to the notch that indicates the start of the slit. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. Press the seam open. There are a million ways how you can stitch a double folded edge. I have never shown this one, so I am using a ruler and I press 2 centimeters. Then I fold in the raw edge in a way it is matching the previously pressed line. The typical way would be to fold 1 centimeter and then fold 1 centimeter again. Add some pins around the slit, especially if you have a silky fabric like I do. It is easier with cotton fabrics to not pin them because then you can just press it, they hold the shape perfectly and then you can stitch and it's easy peasy. But with these slippery fabrics we need to be careful. Stitch 9 mm apart from the edge. When you reach the top of the slit, leave the sewing machine's needle in the fabric, lift the presser foot, then make a turn by 90 degrees, make a few stitches to the other side and then again make a 90-degree turn and stitch down to the hem. Press the slit area. Also check if both sides of the slit are even in length. In case one side is longer, then trim off the difference. Let's baste the pocket bags to the skirt front panels. Pin the pocket bag's upper edge with the skirt front panel's upper edge. You can either use a hand stitch or stitch with the sewing machine 5 mm apart from the edge. Technically, you could skip this step, but we will have less headache later when we will join the skirt to the top. Take the skirt and take the top. Lay top's right side with the skirt right side. It looks like this, that you have to put the top inside the skirt. Match all the seams and all the middle notches and pin around. Try to get the seams as precisely together as you can because it will look very beautiful when you will finish this dress. When it comes to the center back panel, you will need to stretch the top panel so it lays flat against the skirt panel. Add a few pins. Stitch 1 cm apart from the edge. It's better to double check if all the layers, especially the pocket bags, are laying flat under the sewing machine's presser foot. When you reach the center back panel, take your time with it and work centimeter by centimeter. Use your hands to pull the elasticated back flat, make a few stitches. Leave the sewing machine's needle in the fabric, then pull the elastic back again and make a few stitches. Before neatening, let's check if we haven't sewn in any creases. Here we do not need them. Also, we can check if we like how the seams are matching. In case something is wrong, we can still fix it. If everything's great, we can neaten this seam. If you are also using a serger, we should hide the serger stitch tail inside the seam. I am using a tapestry needle with a big eye to do it. It is very important not to simply cut the serger stitch here because with time it would start to unravel, especially after washing. Press the seam towards the skirt panels. Let's do a quick try on to check do we like the lengths. We still can shorten the skirt and the sleeves. Keep in mind that it is best to do try-ons with the shoes you are planning to wear. Especially if you are making the maxi length, the shoes might change a lot. I have these small corners and bumps at the hem, so I will use my scissors to even the hemline. Again, this can happen due to some tiny cutting errors, which, by the way, unless you are cutting with a laser, is impossible to avoid. And also because the skirt seams are almost on bias and maybe one panel stretched out a bit when sewing. This time I will do the typical double folded hem. I am pressing 1 cm of the hemline and then later I will fold 1 cm again and press. The great thing about this fabric is that it doesn't crease easily, but it also means that it is more difficult to press the folded edges. When I lift the iron, the pressed hem tries to get back to flat. That's why I'm using this wooden plank. It gives some extra pressure and mainly allows the hem to cool down. It's similar as if you would warm up a plastic mass, and it would be easy to mold it, but if you wanted to keep its shape, you have to cool it down. You can add some pins to keep the folded edge in place. Work the same way with the sleeve hems. Fold 1 cm, press, and then fold 1 cm again, press and pin. Stitch around approximately 9 mm apart from the edge. Stitch the skirt hem the same way. Press the hems properly and you have finished! I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I try to respond to all of them. Also, let me know what kind of fabric in what color did you choose. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel for more sewing and knitting tutorials. Bye!